Now back to Morningline. Here's Steve Helms.
And welcome back, folks. Thank you for joining us on this terrific Friday, June 10th. And it is a gorgeous day out there, so we hope you enjoy all the activities that the Ozarks has to offer. Well, we're very pleased to have Eric Greitens, a candidate for governor of the great state of Missouri. And Mr. Greitens, thank you for joining us today, sir.
Hey, Steve, it is a real pleasure to be on with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, and I know it's extremely busy. If you wouldn't mind, I know a lot of our listeners know who you are, but some of them don't. So if you could just share with us a little bit about yourself and perhaps why you're running for governor.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So my background, I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a husband and father. My wife, Sheen, and I have a beautiful 22-month-old son, Joshua, and we're very fortunate. Just last week, we welcomed our second son, Jacob.
Yes, that's exciting, yeah.
It's wonderful. Got two young boys at home. And, Steve, I have never run for office before. I have never been involved in politics. You know, as a Navy SEAL, I did 4 tours in the global war on terrorism to Iraq, Afghanistan, Southeast Asia, and the Horn of Africa. And when I came home from Iraq, I came home in 2007 after my team had been hit by a suicide truck bomb. Now, I was very fortunate, Steve. My wounds were minor. I was taken to the Fallujah Surgical Hospital. I was treated there. I was able to return to full duty 72 hours later. But a lot of my friends were hurt far worse than I was. And when I came home, I started an organization called The Mission Continues. And actually, I know a lot of your listeners have come out, have volunteered with us, and worked with our veterans through The Mission Continues. We work with veterans in Missouri and around the state, helping them to, and around the country, helping them to come home and find ways to live lives of purpose and dignity and meaning, starting their own jobs, getting quality private sector employment. And, you know, Steve, there's incredible men and women, some of whom have lost eyesight, lost limbs, been severely burned. They come home, and we work with them through The Mission Continues, helping them to set up their own businesses, get quality jobs, get back on their feet. And so, Steve, I did that for 7 years, and I got to the point where I looked around, especially after the crisis at Ferguson, where you see all this crisis and lawlessness. You look at the crisis at the University of Missouri. You look at what's happening in our economy, where we're 47th in economic growth, and you just recognize that somebody has to stand up and fix politics as usual, and that the same career politicians who got us into this mess aren't going to be the ones to get us out. So I stepped up to run for governor, and we're going to do it. We're going to shake up Jefferson City. We're going to put an end to politics as usual, and we're going to get this economy moving again.
That sounds great. You brought up economics, and, you know, the numbers for Missouri are not great and haven't been great for a long time. What are some specifics that you might like to implement that would, you think, turn the economy around for Missouri?
Well, first of all, it's the most important thing that we can do in Missouri. And you're right, you know, the numbers are, we're 47th in economic growth, 42nd in job growth, 43rd in wage growth. And those aren't just statistics. What that means at a very practical level is you got thousands of Missourians around the state I've been meeting with who are out of work. And a lot of people, Steve, who are lucky enough to have a job aren't seeing a raise for 6 or 7 years. So there's a couple of really clear and simple things that we need to do to get this economy turned around. First of all, we need to become a right-to-work state. It's absolutely essential that we do that. Second, I've run my own business since I've come back from Iraq. I've worked with thousands of veterans to help them run their own businesses. And every business owner will tell you that we need to reduce regulations, especially on our small business owners. Make this a better state to own, run, and grow a business. A couple other things that are really important. When you look at the states where they have the best economic growth, that's also tied to quality education. When you have a quality educated workforce, your employers have people to hire, and it helps to improve the economy. We have to turn education around. We got to address infrastructure, Steve. Agriculture is still our number one industry here in Missouri. It employs 250,000 people. We've got another 37,000 jobs in food processing and storage and transportation. And we have to have the roads, the bridges, and the ports that we need to move our agricultural goods and all of our other goods in Missouri. If we do this the right way, agriculture can continue to be a growth industry here in Missouri. And another thing that we have to do, a lot of people don't recognize how important this is to the economy, but you have to address public safety, right? When you have safe neighborhoods, safe communities, then people can own, run, grow, and operate their businesses. In the absence of that safety, it has a tremendous effect on our economy as well. So look, you sign right to work, you reduce regulations, we end tax credit bribery, we insist on results and accountability, and we take care of those basic things that government has to do, infrastructure and public safety. We'll create the conditions in which our business owners can grow and operate their businesses.
That sounds great. And we are speaking with Eric Greitens, a candidate for governor. And, sir, we're going to take just a couple-minute break, and then when we get back, we'll delve into a little bit more of the issues you just mentioned. So hang in there with us, folks.
Now back to Morningline. Here's Steve Helms.
And welcome back, folks. Thank you for being with us today. And we are very happy to have Eric Greitens, a Republican candidate for governor. And, sir, you mentioned a lot of good things that I think many Republicans would like to hear. Infrastructure, though, is a huge issue. And funding, there were several initiatives that didn't make it through. What are your thoughts on how we resolve some of the issues with our infrastructure?
Yeah, it's a big issue, Steve, and it's something that you hear about all over the state. And here's what's striking, Steve. You know, as I travel around the state, almost everybody would tell you, yeah, we should be investing more money in our roads and our bridges and our ports. And then you ask them, do you trust career politicians and the government of Missouri to spend your money wisely? And everybody will say no. And a big problem that we have in Missouri is that because of the backwards priorities of career politicians, people don't trust state government. And so here's what I think we need to do. First of all, I think we need to change the culture in Jefferson City. Then I think we need to bring about results and accountability, and we need to put every option on the table. And here's what that looks like at a really practical level. I think, first of all, we need to ban all gifts from lobbyists. Second, I think we need to close the revolving door between legislators and special interests. And third, I think we need to insist on term limits for every statewide office holder. This is the people's government, and people shouldn't, we've got too many politicians who go to Jefferson City who are just looking for the next perk or free meal from a lobbyist. People need to go to Jefferson City to serve. We need to reestablish that culture. Second, right now we've got a $27 billion budget in the state of Missouri, but when you look through that budget, you can't tell what the government of Missouri produces for the people of Missouri. What I'm going to do when I'm governor is that we're going to make sure that every agency of government has a clearly defined mission, and that for every line item in the budget, we're able to measure their performance so that we can see what the people are actually getting for the money that they're spending. We're also going to do in Missouri the same thing that they did in Ohio, Steve, and that is, they've got ohiocheckbook.gov, where any citizen can go online and you can see every single check that the government writes. We're going to do the same thing here in Missouri. This is the people's money, and they should be able to see how it's being spent. After that, when other states have done this, Indiana followed that same process, South Carolina followed that same process. They were able to invest an additional $1 billion in their roads and their bridges in both Indiana and South Carolina, just by insisting on results and accountability and cleaning up state government. And that's what we're going to do here in Missouri.
Well, that sounds great, and it is. Anytime you try to reform any government, it's a daunting task. Education is huge, and it's a big priority at the state level. And I think a lot of folks in Springfield area like the idea of local control. What are your thoughts on what the state government can do to help improve our education system?
Well, first of all, you touched on it, Steve, local control. The first thing that we have to do is we have to have a governor who's willing to stand up and fight back against Common Core. I mean, let's be clear. There is no bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. who should be choosing our curriculums, choosing and dictating what our textbooks are going to be. I was just down at Robertson Elementary in Springfield, walked into a third grade classroom. There was a girl there who the teacher told me that both of her parents were meth addicts. Now, look, you can't tell me that there's any bureaucrat in D.C. who understands her talents. There's no administrator in Jefferson City who understands her needs. We need to support her teacher, her foster parents, her principal, her church and community leaders. Those are the people who understand best what her needs are. I mentioned she and I have two kids at home. We believe that education begins in the home, and that all of our kids in Missouri, whether they're being homeschooled in private school or public schools, they deserve to have a shot at a quality education. Well, what you have to do if you're going to do that is you got to return power to people at the local level. The other thing that's really promising and is really hopeful for us is that when you start to get government out of the way and you get the community involved, you get fantastic results. I mean, right down there in Springfield, you've got a tremendous program in Care to Learn, where the business community and other people come together to make sure that the needs of all of our kids are met so that they can continue to study, continue to learn. When you look at the most effective schools in the country, whether they're public schools, private schools, charter schools, there are schools where there is intensive local involvement, and that's the kind of schools that we need to support and promote here in Missouri, and that's what I'm going to do when I'm governor.
Sounds great. One of the things, and I have not, and I hope to rectify this in the future, haven't had the opportunity to personally meet you. I've met the other candidates, and my understanding is that at one point in time you were on the Democrat side. I guess my question is, what brought your conversion, or why did you move to the Republican Party?
Yeah, Steve, I was born and raised a Democrat. You know, both of my parents were Democrats. I think I grew up in fourth grade. I think we were taught that Harry Truman was the greatest person who'd ever lived on the planet. You know, and I loved Harry Truman. So I was born and raised and grew up as a Democrat. But I tell you what, you grow up and, you know, you have the experiences that I've had where, you know, you serve as a Navy SEAL like I did. I did 4 tours in the global war on terrorism. I've come back home. I've run my own business. And then watching the VA, watching the government bureaucracy hurt my friends when they came home from places like Iraq and Afghanistan, all of those things start to shape your philosophy. So I'm a conservative not by birth but by conviction, and it's a conviction rooted in the things that I've seen and the things that I've done, you know, serving my country in the military, running a business, watching a government bureaucracy, you know, really destroy the lives of my friends. All of those things have shaped my conservative philosophy.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I can understand, you know, I like Harry Truman. I don't agree with everything that he stood for and advocated, but, you know, I think there's common ground, regardless of your party, we can all agree upon. And
right.
What are you, when you're going around the state, what are the issues, and we've got about 4 minutes left, that you're hearing the voters talk to you about?
So a couple of really, really big issues. The first one, the biggest issue, Steve, is that people are sick of the games in Jefferson City, and they are tired of career politicians. It's why they're so excited about this race and my candidacy. Look, I'm the only person in this race who's never run for office before. My opponents combined have been in 20 different elections, and a lot of people around the state are saying, look, if they were going to make a difference, wouldn't they have done so already? And the choice in the election is becoming very clear that, you know, for people who are happy with the way state government is working, you know, they can vote for one of my opponents because they can be sure that with them, nothing's going to change. I'm the only one who's been willing to come out and say that Jefferson City is corrupt, that this culture where there are no limits on lobbyist gifts, where this culture where our legislators turn around and become lobbyists right away, this is a corrupt culture, and it's part of the culture that's that my opponents have been a part of, and we have got to turn this around. We've got to clean up Jefferson City. That's the first thing that they say. The second, Steve, is they want somebody who's tough enough and clear-headed enough to actually get this economy turned around, get more quality private sector paychecks, bigger private sector paychecks. And the third thing that I'm hearing from a lot of people, Steve, is that they want to make sure that they have a governor who's going to have the backs of our law enforcement officers. They want to know that they're going to have a governor who's really going to support our law enforcement officers. And they recognize that they want to have a governor who's actually had the experience of wearing body armor and putting on a sidearm, somebody who understands what it means to say goodnight to your family and step into the dark and do dangerous work. Those are a lot of the key issues. And then, you know, I'd add to that, of course, people recognize that we need somebody who's going to fight back against the federal government, especially Obamacare. They like the fact that I'm a pro-life, pro-Second Amendment candidate. All of those things are important to the people of Missouri. But the number one thing, again, to come back to, the number one thing people are saying is they are sick and tired of the career politicians, and it's why they're excited about getting behind a Navy SEAL, a conservative outsider who's never run for office before.
And I know there was an ad came out, and I am in a bad part of the state right now. I don't get very good internet service, and so I haven't seen it myself. But I understand it involves some gunplay and maybe an explosion. Was that a fun one to
we
put
had
together?
A ton of fun, Steve, and you being an Army veteran yourself, you'll appreciate. Yeah, look, I brought out an M4. We put a few rounds downrange. There is an explosion, and what we're letting people know is that we're taking dead aim at politics as usual. We're taking dead aim at politics as usual, and that we're ready to fire away. You know, for too long, Missourians have been hurting while corrupt insiders and lobbyists and career politicians have been getting rich. And we're ready to stand up and to take our government back. And the ad has done incredibly well around the state, Steve. We've had thousands of people who are coming out to our website, to ericgreitens.com, who are signing up because they like the idea that with strong conservative leadership from outside of the political establishment, that we can take our state back.
But we're speaking with Eric Greitens, a Republican candidate for governor. Where can folks go to get information about you, sir?
Steve, I'd love folks to come out and join us. Join our mission at ericgreitens.com. That's ERICGREITENS.com. And if you go out to ericgreitens.com, you'll learn more about the campaign, about the events that we're holding around the state, and we'd love to have people come out and join us.
Well, sir, we appreciate your time, and thank you for being on air, and we hope to have you on again in the future.
Absolutely, Steve. It's my pleasure. Look forward to being on with you again.
You're very welcome. And, folks, that's Eric Greitens, candidate for governor, and we will be right back after these messages.